Hey, welcome back, and in today's video, in our 101, 103 is today. But last week's video, we understood about the two types of garments. The first garment was what Adam made by himself, with an alternative cover to cover his nakedness, which was with the fig leaves, which we know. But this won't help him for long, since of course they will cripple away. But he felt shy though, even after wearing this before God to show him. So what God did, he provided them a garment made by animal skin. So this indicates that God has a plan to rescue the humankind and protect us from the consequence of sin. As his justice took place and his love also travels with us to protect us, and his knowledge and power, which is his best ever, started to execute together to help the human salvation, since he helps us in many ways, the human race, since his knowledge and his love for us to protect us. We know this. But now, what is the spiritual meaning of this, what we'll just learn? Since we know that animal sacrifices have been very well renowned, or in the Bible, in the most places. The first sacrifice was done by God, of course, we know, to make the garment, and then Abel and Cain, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the law covenant. God told Moses to build an altar for them in the tabernacle to burn the offerings for Israelites. But we know Moses does this through Moses. This was to Israelites through Moses. They were burning the offerings for Israelites through Moses. We know that they were doing this here. Initially, though, we should note that God's justice has a very important message where he mentions about this in an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and a hand for a hand, and a foot for a foot. This is in Exodus 21st chapter. So the overall master plan is due to the disobedience of Adam. We all know this. By a perfect disobedience of one person, then the obedience must come from a perfect man as well, which is our Jesus Christ, who completely obeyed and fulfilled the law, and that's why he died for us. The question helps us to understand what is happening, though, due to the consequences of sin. Yes, we know that what had happened to Adam and Eve when they had done the consequence of sin, the quality of guilt to God, alternative like hiding themselves and blaming, justifying, and a continuation of the wrath of Cain all the way to Cain. It goes to a finally of death of his son Abel. So the consequence of sin has many, how to put it, stages and different emotions for the flesh, and it leads to death in the end. Because we saw at first for Adam and Eve, it was blaming, justifying, how to put it, afraid, guiltiness, and in the end, the consequence of sin leaded to Cain as well, to kill his own brother and his son of Abraham. So it leads to different emotions, the consequence of sin does, and it can lead to this extreme things. So before we get to more detail, though, we should look about where the life of flesh comes from in the human body. So we can read this in Leviticus 17th chapter, 11th verse. Let's read it. Sorry about that, 1 minute. '17th chapter, 11th verse. There we go. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that maketh an atonement for the soul. So we need to understand this important verse. But this verse is an important verse since it explains how the life of flesh is in the blood. But we won't touch much on that in this week's video, but that will be in next week's video. But let's do a recap of what we've learned. So we know that many places the sacrifices have been used. At first it was God using it to make the garments. Then we had Cain, Abel, then Abraham, then Isaac, and then Jacob. Then we had it in the tabernacle where they give offerings through Moses. And then we understood about the consequence of sin and what it does to us. And we also understood that a perfect man's, due to Adam, this consequence of sin happened, the disobedience. So the perfect man of obedience must come to fix this law and do the right thing and fix everything. That's what Jesus Christ did. But we need to understand about what Adam had done, the consequence of sin, the emotions that changed through him. We need to understand. And Eve, the guiltiness, the afraid, the justifying, the blaming, and the continuation of this consequence of sin leads to death, since Cain killed his own brother and son of Adam because of the consequence of sin. So we need to understand the consequence of sin has many emotions of flesh, and it can finally lead to death. Then we just looked about the blood, how it's the main part of the body, and the human body, the blood, and we read it in Leviticus 17, chapter 11th verse. But I said just now we will not touch on that this week, but we'll touch on it next week and learn more about that next week. So see you then. Bye.